Hello to Tina and Petra, the Chair and Vice Chair of the IOSH Rural Industries Group. Thank you both for joining us to provide valuable insights about the rural industry. This is going to be a quick fire interview for those who are just starting out in safety and health careers or who may be looking to change or join the group. Myself, Tom, and Ellis are members of the IOSH Future Leaders Community Steering Group, and we'll now ask you a few questions to provide that insight for us. So if I can ask you first, Tina, what types of businesses and activities are included within rural industries?
Probably the easiest answer to this one is what types of businesses and industries are not included in the Rural Industries Group. We have a huge number of industries that we cover. Mainly, if I was to narrow it down, what we would say is any business or activity that takes place in a rural setting, provides a service to a rural community, or their business gets an income from the rural economy. So that can be a huge amount of things, and we're looking at things like agriculture, forestry, fishing, conservation, equine, poultry, estate management, horticulture, fresh produce growing, agricultural engineers, feed merchants. The list goes on and on and on. It is absolutely vast, but there's some of the main industry areas that we communicate with and that we try to include information for. So yeah, rural industries is a very broad brush. I'm sure Petra can probably add a few to that list. So please feel free, Petra.
Yeah. I think these days, when you look at what, certainly on the agricultural side, what farms end up doing in terms of farm diversification, what starts off as a typical farming business can actually end up as an events enterprise, a camping site, holiday lets, food manufacturing. Lots of sort of artisan bakeries pop up, and dairies producing all sorts of wonderful cheeses, and all of those are based in farm buildings in very much in the rural side of the economy. So all of that as well.
Wow, there's so much, didn't realise.
Me neither. Can I just start with Petra then? So why is OSH so important in rural industries, and what kinds of OSH issues are particularly relevant?
I think based on what we've just said in terms of the broad range, obviously it's a very vital part of the economy. I mean, all the food that ends up on everybody's table comes from the rural industries. Ultimately, they come from the farming industry. It's the industry with the poorest safety record in the UK, and in fact I think internationally, with 21 times the fatal injury rate as compared to the all industry average. So occupational safety and health is massively important. And if we look at the stats over the sort of 5-year fatal injury stats, it's the same things that are causing those injuries and fatalities year in, year out. So it's falls from height, contacts with machinery, moving vehicles, working with livestock. You've got all sorts of occupational health issues as well, whether it's your standard sort of exposure to biologicals, or noise, vibration, chemicals, pesticides, but yeah, all sorts. And then on top of that, the whole thing gets exaggerated by the fact that most of the time you're working in very small teams or on your own. Working on your own obviously increases the risk massively. So an accident that happens to a person on their own compared to the same accident when there's people working next to them, is obviously the potential results of that are huge. And then you've got the mental health side as well. So that again is increasingly prevalent, and the stats on suicide in rural industries again is much higher than in comparable industries. So I don't know if Tina, if I've missed anything out there in terms of importance.
No, I think that we've touched on the main areas really. I mean, occupational safety and health in a lot of industries may just be considered to be safety. But within the rural industries, it has to encompass everything. It has to cover the health, it has to cover the welfare, it has to cover the well-being. Because within rural industries, you tend to have such a massive age range, from your children who shouldn't be on farms, but unfortunately we see them on farms, right the way through to the 80, 90-year-olds who don't want to retire. It's been their life, it's in their blood, it's their family's business, and that's all they've ever known. So it's very important really to have an occupational safety and health feature within all of these industries, someone who knows the importance, knows how they can be helped, knows how they can be guided, and is able to provide that for them. So taking away the isolation that they have because they're in a rural industry and bringing the information to them. So that's why it's really, really important.
Absolutely. It's interesting to find out just what a broad spectrum it sort of covers, really. Thanks for that.
Yeah, really good. So Tina, if we can come back to you, how can a future leader, someone who's younger or new to OSH, how can they gain experience or even find a role within rural industries?
What we quite often hear from people is that I can't get a step on the ladder because I don't have experience, or I can't get into your industry. The great news is that rural industries, as we've already touched upon, is such an enormous field of industries and employers all brought together, and a lot of the risks that are there, all of the different types of rural industries have. So when you gain experience in one of those industries, it can be transferable quite easily to other industries. So the great news is there are opportunities, there are ways in which you can get to work within the industry. Networking is key. So I would say being members of as many IOSH groups as you can be members of, get in with your local branches, look at the different groups. If you're interested in fire, but you have a farming slant on it, be members of the fire group as well. Pick up those networks, go to events that are offered, go to your local branch meetings, even things like using social networks, LinkedIn groups and things like that, reaching out to people who are employed within those sectors and build relationships. When I first started off in my health and safety career, I was very similar, and I was like, how am I ever going to break into this? How am I going to get there? And I started by volunteering. I used the knowledge and skill that I had in respect of health and safety, and I simply went along to people and said, can I have a look around your site? And while I'm looking at it, if I find some hazards, could we sit down and have a chat about it? And I used those opportunities, and I reached out to other health and safety professionals and said, could I come and shadow you on a visit? And so those opportunities exist. They really do exist out there, but you've got to be forthright enough to put yourself forward, because they don't come and jump in your lap. You do have to really put yourself out there. So if I was to give them a takeaway, I would say don't ever get disheartened. Rural industries is a massive set of employers, and they are there and they need help. And if you're willing to help and put yourself out, an opportunity will always find its way to you.
Really good advice there.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tina. I think it's particularly prevalent, the networking slant on it as well. I think that's really important throughout health and safety, and I think IOSH is a really good foundation for that as well. It can put you in touch with a lot of people, so that's great. I'm going to come to you now, Petra. What advice would you give to someone starting off in an OSH role in a rural industry?
Get to know your industry. We keep saying the same thing. It's such a broad range of business activities, a broad range of risks, and you need to have a really good understanding of that and also of your own competence level. So not going beyond your comfort zone because you're just looking at something brand new. And again, because there is such a range of things, and with the diversification side of it, you can think you're going out to look at a dairy farm and end up looking at a bakery. You know, I think both Tina and I have been in situations like that in our sort of professional lives. And so at some point you have to say, do you know what, I'm going to have to get back to you on this one because I need to research it. I need to speak to people. And I think, again, that comes back to that networking process, you know, making sure you've got the connections so that you can get advice when you need it. We all, as professionals, need advice, however long in the tooth we might be. And the other thing, I think, which is quite specific to rural industries, is you really have a good understanding of your customer. So both Tina and I have worked with farmers for a number of years, and you need to know how to speak farmer. And it's great if you've come from a farming or a rural background because you're one step ahead. But if you haven't, and I certainly didn't, you need to get that understanding. You need to understand what the challenges are for them. You need to understand the risk that they're facing, the pressures that they're under, and that then shapes the way that you communicate. Because if you go in there and you communicate on the wrong level, you're actually not going to be very effective. So you have to really gain that relationship. They're ultimately normally small family businesses, and you're sitting around the kitchen table with a cake and a cup of tea when you're actually working, which is not many other industries where you get that kind of insight, I think, into that mix of professional, family life, home life, work life, and it's all just intermingled. So yeah, a good understanding of customers as well.
Fantastic, thanks Petra.
So now if we can speak a little bit more about the IOSH Group itself. Tina, what value has the IOSH Group provided to you, and what can it offer to future leaders?
I think with all IOSH groups, you get out of it what you're prepared to put in, to be perfectly honest. I joined the group 5 years ago, and in those 5 years, I've just made so many contacts throughout different groups, which has helped me really in being able to progress in my career, but not only to progress in my career, but also to gain Chartered Fellow status as a result, because I've made those connections where I've been able to review industry papers. I've been able to put my knowledge and skills to the test, and most of those knowledge and skills have come from being a member of IOSH and being part of the IOSH Rural Industries Group. People now will ring me up and say, we're writing an article on this, can you provide us with some information? And I know the people I can speak to now in order to be able to fulfill that. Whereas before, when I wasn't involved with the group, I would sit on the peripheries and read an article in the IOSH magazine or in Farmers Weekly and think, wow, I could probably write something along those lines, but I'm not sure who to speak to. Now I know who to speak to, and Farmers Guardian and Farmers Weekly come to us and ask us for that insight now. I've been certainly very lucky with the group. I've been asked to comment on things from the International Labour Organization, joining on all party parliamentary groups and talking to them about things that really matter in occupational health and safety, but really matter to our industry as well. And those opportunities wouldn't have been there. And I think it's been really important for us to use IOSH's voice, but also to use the group's voice and the group's knowledge and expertise in all of the different areas. We've got people on our group that are very, very high in industries such as equine and forestry, and all types of different industries, but we can pull on those resources that you just don't have as an individual mostly. So that's what it's given me personally. What would it give to a future leader? The same, if that's what they want. The future leader shouldn't look at it as a first and only step. It should be the first step in a journey. And they should be sitting there, and I hope they are now, watching this and saying, I want to be a Tina, I want to be a Petra, I want to be a chair, and I want to be a vice chair, and I'm going to go there and I'm going to do it. And I want to have my name in the IOSH magazine as having contributed to an article. I want to have chartered safety practitioner. I want to be a chartered fellow. It means a lot. It does mean a lot. And I think if they aspire to it, they will get there. But it only comes from hard work, dedication, and to be honest, you will become a total bore. You will bore people to death about health and safety, and you find yourself talking about it without even realising you're talking about it. But it's not boring to us, and I'm sure Petra will say the same. We've got a passion for our industry, and that's what being a member of the groups brings you, a passion for safety, and it builds on that passion.
Yeah, that's great. We can really sense your passion. Anything to add, Petra, about the value of the group?
I think Tina's covered that all there. Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. So coming back to you then, Petra, what is this year's focus area, and how can new IOSH members get involved?
I think when we look at rural industries, the focus area changes frequently. It's very much driven by what's happening in the industry. And I think if we look across all industries at the moment, we've got a lot of financial concerns, financial struggles. And again, that can be exaggerated for those working in rural industries, particularly in agriculture. It can have a huge knock-on effect for occupational safety and health, particularly mental health, actually, when we look at some of the agricultural communities and how they're impacted by it all. And so in terms of focus for us, it's to keep on top of some of those challenges and look at the impacts. And also with the rural industries, we also have to recognise the seasonality of it. So we say what are this year's focus, but actually what's the focus for the immediate season? You know, sometimes when we're looking at our events and our plannings in the group, we're looking at matching what's happening seasonality. So is it harvest time? Is it silencing time? You know, all of those kind of things come into it as well. So it's what's our main focus? I think just keeping on top of the right advice, being pertinent with the advice, and say just trying to continue to collaborate across other organisations, making sure that we're helping drive those stats down. I'm trying to think, Tina, if there's anything else to add in terms of focus.
Yeah, I think one of as Petra said, in addition to all the collaboration that we do and the consultations that we get involved with and the sessions, the training, the webinars and things that we can do, it's really a focus for the group to make sure that we are delivering what our partner organisations also expect from us. So making sure that where there are fatal notifications, we're getting the right messages out there, and we're giving occupational safety and health professionals, practitioners, the information that they need to be able to also drive down those fatal stats. You know, there are families that are devastated in rural communities when there's a fatality. It's not like any other industry. It can be an entire family that is devastated. And what we need to be doing is keeping the focus of occupational and health and safety at the forefront of everyone's minds. And that's the aim of the group, and that's what we strive to do, and that's what we'll continue to strive to do. So our focus is every year, more of the same, always more of the same. Our industries don't change, so we don't, but we need to, as Petra said, be mindful of the isolation that our that our client base, if you like, is facing, that those employed in rural industries are facing, the isolation, the concerns around money worries, and trying to be there just to make that isolation less, and to help wherever we can.
That's great. Thanks both. Well, thank you both for your contributions today. It's been really useful and very insightful. I've taken a lot from it. I'm sure Tom has as well. And I'm sure everybody who watches this will. So we hope that inspires the next IOSH OSH professionals. Tina, Petra, have you got any final words before we wrap up?
Just to say thank you. Yes, see, we both talk at the same time there. So just to say thank you for the opportunity to try and encourage more engagement with the future leaders. I think that's really important to our industry and safety professionals. You know, we want to encourage safety professionals to come into the industry. It's crying out for you, basically, future leaders. So, you know, do reach out to us if you want more information. We're more than happy to have conversations, to help mentor, all of the usual supportive type practices. But please, yeah, let us know.
Yeah, and absolutely the same from me. Yeah, I agree with everything Petra just said. You know, we are crying out for future leaders in agriculture, in forestry, in fisheries, in all rural industries. There is a need there for young people to come and breathe life into what can be seen as quite a stale industry. So yeah, please, we would love to see some of the future leaders at maybe one of our future meetings. Please reach out to us, make the connection, and we'd love to invite you along.
Amazing. That's great, both. Well, all that's left to say is thank you and goodbye. So thank you both for your time today. And I hope future people watching this have found it useful.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thanks.